You made a joke yourself when I saw your stand-up that you're not fussy was your joke. And that's probably in relation to the fact that you don't give a what they look like. Is that true? So your whole life leading up till the age of 30 in Singapore, it was illegal to be gay?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you're treated differently than other people in gay world?
I remember that night where he told me that I was going to be totally blind as well. It was like, you have about 10 years of eyesight before you go totally blind. That drove me kind of insane. I was trying to come to terms with my sexuality, but at the same time trying to come to terms with my disability. And the disability part overtook the sexuality part. The first thought in my mind is, who will love me now? I felt so unworthy of love. And I want to live. I want to live a life. I don't want to die from this.
I wanted to meet you and hear your story because it's not an everyday story, is it?
No, not really.
This is off the record, but I'm just curious. Is it sight impairment or blindness?
There's two levels. You can be visually impaired, like low vision, or you can be severely visually impaired, which is registered blind.
Right.
I am at the later category.
Okay.
I only have roughly about 2% of my vision field left, so it's only central vision.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll keep that bit in because I think it's quite useful to ask questions.
Yeah,
too.
sure.
Because I don't know about you, but I feel like people are sometimes scared to ask people questions.
They're terrified. People are they you ask, is there something you can't ask a blind person? I'm like, not really.
Yeah.
It's all about your intent. Are you there to insult them, or are you and then posing it as a question, or are you trying to learn something? And I think educating yourself and understanding from a different point of view is never wrong.
Yeah. You've just said then that your vision is 2%.
Yeah.
So if you were to almost
describe
that.
It would be like looking through a straw. So if you take a straw from McDonald's, if they still have plastic straws, and you try to put 2 straws in front of each of your eye, and they don't converge perfectly. There's a little bit of a distortion, but that's about what I can see is only directly at the things I'm looking at. So without peripheral vision, I can walk into things quite easily, or my depth perception is terrible.
Okay.
I tend to bang the people. So, over the years, I realized that I have to use my cane to warn other people that I'm pretty clumsy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that 2%, is that the
Clear?
same vision that it was before? Clear?
No, because with other eye conditions, they were not perfect, but it's pretty clear. I would say had over 10 eye surgeries so far.
Right.
To try to preserve what I have. But it's usable.
Yeah.
Gets me around.
This isn't something you were born with. This is
No.
something that you developed or something happened?
So in the army, I was given the wrong medication. I was by the medical doctor. He didn't check whether I was a steroid responder. So my conditions are called glaucoma, and it's steroid induced. So I wasn't supposed to be given steroids without checking my eye pressure. So when you are a steroid responder, if you have given the drops, and then if you use it for a period of time without monitoring, your eye basically expands. The eyeball expands, and then the optic nerve cells behind the eyes got compressed, and that's how it got damaged.
Right, okay. You grew up in Singapore, moved to the UK when you were 30. I want to talk about Singapore and homosexuality in terms of the law and the culture and societal ideas around it, I suppose. Is it true that homosexuality was only decriminalized in Singapore in 2022?
Yes.
And same-sex marriage is still not legal there?
Correct.
Right. So you're 38. So your whole life leading up till the age of 30 in Singapore, it was illegal to be gay. So how was growing up gay in Singapore?
It was really interesting. I think the last arrest they ever did for gay sex, it was in 1996. I believe, and it has, it's one of those policies where we consider don't ask, don't tell. You don't talk about it. There are gay bars. There are clearly things happen behind closed doors. It happens, but I think growing up, there's always a sense of shame, and I think this is common not just in Singapore, but in all sorts of countries. But when the law states that it's illegal, it really kind of makes people a little bit more anxious, I say.
What is it illegal to do? Hold hands in public, kiss in public, do any of these things? What is it illegal?
That's not illegal, but basically it's frowned upon, right? There's a societal expectations of what's considered a societal norm, and you don't see role models, you don't see anything that's positive about gay life. So, for example, when a decade ago or 2 decades ago, when Ellen DeGeneres in the US, she had her show, anything positive about her and Portia is being censored out of the media. Right. Anytime Helen mentions Portia, it gets cut.
So you have a regulatory board that's whole job is to censor media that goes into Singapore.
Media that portrays positive LGBT lifestyles. So it's okay to talk about LGBT in a negative light, but you're not allowed to talk about it. Not allowed to showcase them in a positive light.
So what would a negative light be?
So, they are sad, lonely, they can't find partners, they have AIDS, they are generally, this is not a great lifestyle. So it's propaganda, basically.
And that exists?
That exists, yeah.
In a very daytime form, you would see that just spoken about.
Yeah, you allow, like any characters on TV shows that's gay, they will have a tragic ending.
But you've basically grown up in a society where you thought it was
shameful.
Yeah.
Shameful, and that it's wrong, and that you think that, who I am or what I'm attracted to is a bad thing.
Do you have any stories of when you were in Singapore, maybe you were on a night out, maybe you were with a boy, where you felt particularly uncomfortable or something almost scary happened to you?
In Singapore, I mean, unfortunately for me, because I lost my eyesight at 18 years old, 19 years old, that's when I, realized I was gay, and I was trying to, come to terms with my sexuality, but at the same time, trying to come to terms with my disability. And the disability part overtook the sexuality part. So never really thought too much about, whether, about my gay self.
Yeah.
Just thought about survival. It's purely survival for me. So didn't really go out that much. I did go out with my friends, but never felt unsafe. It just feels like, but I think more about my survival and my blindness more than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about national service.
Sure.
Because I'm very interested in this and how this actually functions within society. So at 18, everybody, or just men, have to do what in Singapore?
Back then, it was like 2 years, or was it 1.5 years of your life? You have to be part of national service, which could be military or the police force, or working with at hospitals. So I think it's compulsory unless you're exempt from it.
And what counts as exempt?
Full on disability like blindness, or if you are clinically insane, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yep.
And what does that entail, those 2 years? So it's almost like we go to university.
Yeah. I went to basic military training, BMT, and that was like 3 months on an island with you're assigned to a platoon and a company, and then you have sergeants screaming at you, and you have to do fitness and march at 5 a.m. every day.
Why couldn't you have got the police? How do you pick what you go
Yeah,
into?
you don't get to pick.
But surely amongst you and your mates, there's a joke before you turn 18. Oh, I hope I get this. I hope I get that because I've heard this is easier. This is hard.
Yeah.
So what are the categories of what do you hope you get versus what do you really not want to get?
Oh, well, I think what people will be hoping for would be like, I hope I get exempted. So the only people who get exempted are for that when at 18 years old, students who manage to get into medicine. So you go directly into med school because that's going to take a bit of time. And then you have to come back and serve as a captain because you already have a medical degree. So therefore, you're higher ranking, which was the issue because I got the medication from someone who was a captain who clearly just finished med school.
Right.
And he didn't check about the eye pressure. So, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know anyone who was able to pick anything because this is purely random.
Your time in the national service, day to day, obviously your days were incredibly varied, but what are you doing?
So the first 3 months was purely training. You have to like pass a 3-month course of like fitness and run around and that's just like you learn how to shoot, you learn how to throw a grenade, you learn how to polish a gun, you learn how to like the chains of command, you learn that if you don't follow any of their rules, you'll be thrown into military jail,
so it's rigorous.
It's rigorous, yeah.
Physical.
It's tough, yeah. Tough mentally as well.
Being in national service, being gay, you do not talk about it.
No. There is if I'm not mistaken, there is like the code where you can actually declare yourself gay. You can do that. It will be permanently recorded in the government in your files, and then they will put you with the rest of the homosexuals
in national service.
In national service, any government jobs in the future, they will know your sexuality. There's a lot of gay shame attached to that, so it's quite difficult.
Can you tell us the full story on exactly the timeline and how you lost your sight in national service? Well,
it's 20 years ago. So I would try my best. So after basic military service, I was sent to the ammunition command to train as an ammunition technician to learn how to deal with bombs and bullets and fireworks and stuff like that. Which means we spend a lot of time in the storehouse with missiles, with any ammunition really, and that's where my eyes started flaring up because I don't know if it's the dust or whatever. It was just I couldn't really open my eyes. It was just really red constantly. So I had to see the medical officer, and without even checking my eyes, they just prescribed medication. And which is quite surprising now that we've seen a lot of eye specialists. Everyone checks your eyes, but he just prescribed, you have a red eyes, I'm just gonna give you steroid eye drops.
When you say you didn't check your eyes,
he didn't even look out from his notes. Right. I remember I was like, what the hell?
Okay.
Yeah. So and then once the eye drops are finished, it's because the condition was bad for me, because my eyes were just reacting to the dust or something. So I had to go back again and again to get more medication with the eye drops. And then I think within a few months, I realized one day I woke up, I was like, something is wrong. My vision is really blurry and it's uncomfortable. And I went to a private doctor instead of a military medical officer. And he said, let's get you into surgery right now. You're losing your eyesight by the minute. Your eye pressure is sky high. Every second counts because my optic nerve cells are being damaged as we are talking. So I had my first eye surgery on February 14th. Remember it was Valentine's Day. I was on the surgery table, and then 3 weeks later we had the second eye surgery on my other eye. Couldn't see anything for a good few weeks. The doctors didn't tell me that I was blind. And then when the bandage came off, I could see what I'm seeing right now, which is a small circle. And then I was optimistic. I was like, okay, I'll just carry on as it is. And then I realized something was wrong because I keep falling down. I keep hurting myself. I keep bumping into things because there's no more depth perception. And then I just got really frustrated because I got all these cuts from falling down. And I was doing a follow-up. I was like, what is happening? Why am I not getting better? And the doctor's like, okay, I didn't tell you this, but you are permanently blind. Yeah, that was when I cried. And the most interesting thing in the experience I realized is the first thought in my mind is, who will love me now? I felt so unworthy of love because this is such an ableist view, but I was just asking myself, who will love me now? And I think it's like a primal human desire, need to be loved. I started doubting myself, and my whole life started spiraling. I was in depression for a few months, and that the army didn't let me. After my surgery, I needed and recovery. I still needed to go back and continue my national service. I'm like, you guys just cost me my sight.
Yeah.
And I have to continue. So I remember putting on my uniform, and I was given a cane from Singapore National. It's called SAVH, Singapore Association for the Visually Handicapped. They gave me a cane, and they taught me basic cane mobility and orientation. And here you go, live your life.
Was there a lot of compassion from them?
No, I mean, yes, because it's always harder to lose your sight than to be born blind, because you lost something, right? There's grief to be overcome. And I remember I was so worried about my survival because my parents were not wealthy. I came from a very poor family. So I didn't know if I could continue with university. After military service, I didn't know what I was gonna do. They did have like an employment service from the association. They say, okay, we in Singapore, there are 3 things that blind people can do. They can either be a telephone marketer, they could be a street busker,
right,
or they can be they can learn to be a masseuse. I was like, I don't do any of that.
So there
were the 3 career paths for blind people.
But they forced you to do national service during your recovery.
Yeah, they asked me to go back to the office and wash cups and plates. I'm not even joking.
So it wasn't the same what you were doing before.
It was not the same. Oh, I can't do that anymore, right? But I remember putting on my uniform with my cane, and I walked into the office. Everyone on the streets was like, "What the hell is happening? Why is this personnel in uniform using a cane?" And then I was crying as going into work, because I was like, why am I being asked to go to work?
Surely someone was saying Jeffrey needs to.
And they banned me from wearing the uniform after that. Because I was embarrassing the national service by putting on my uniform and having a disability, being blind.
But you were still doing it, just not in uniform.
Just not in uniform.
But what I don't understand is that you said to me at the start that to be exempt from national service, your blindness now would have originally exempted you. So why, if it happened during service, would they not release you from it?
Because there is no one person making such a decision. You need to appeal for it. And I basically lost it. I remember, this is what I guess this is my young emotional self. Back then, I remember my officer saying to me, "You know what? You're very lucky you lost your eyesight in the army because we paid for your surgery."
Okay.
I lost it. I punched him, and then I got thrown into a psychiatric ward for that night. I got locked up for one night.
Oh my God.
And I remember that night when I was being locked out, I was like, okay, you need to calm down because everyone else here is crazy, and they were screaming and shouting, and I was like, I'm going crazy if I'm staying here. So I just pretended that everything's fine. The doctor who discharged me is like, okay, are you fine? Go see a psychiatrist. You're clearly depressed. This is what happened. I understand. Go see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist wrote, give me time off, like medically unfit to continue for the rest of my remaining military service because of that incident. Because I was ready to lose it. I had nothing else to lose.
You've just told me the timeline from you had this reaction to something that you're not sure of, but dust or something was going on there. In retrospect, has that been picked up as something they can now look at and go, what was happening there?
I was having I think it's my immunity, right? I was born with eczema, like quite bad eczema, but then they didn't think that it was bad enough for you to not serve the army, which is really ridiculous. And then with that same condition, the inflammation was also happening in my eyes for the conjunctivitis. So basically, it was just my eyes were flaring up from the dust and from the environment which I was not meant to be in.
And then when you started getting these drops from a doctor who didn't even look at your eyes,
yeah,
what where was the biggest mistake that was made until you left surgery? Do you think
the
or do you
drops?
know?
He should have just checked my eyes to say that if this is why don't give me steroid eye drops without checking whether my eye pressure. That's number one, because you cannot tell whether your eye pressure is up or down unless they test it. You can't feel it. So for me to feel it like at 40, 50, when I'm losing sight by the second, slowly, that is where the damage was happening.
So the drops were
causing the blockage. Then the blockage was the one that causes the eye optic nerve cells to be damaged.
okay.
Yeah.
And that was due to the blocks, though, was it? Sorry, the drops.
The drops, yeah.
And
They caused the blocks.
And these were steroid drops. And you were taking them for how many weeks or days?
I think about 2 months.
2 months. Wow. And then this person told you that you take this long enough, your eyes will get better.
No, he didn't say anything. He just like, you got red eyes, take this. Like he prescribed it. I was just following his prescription.
And yeah, you noticed they just weren't getting better.
I was not getting better because the environment is always constantly dusty, and I was not suitable for it.
Right. So the surgery itself
was to create an artificial gap, like a drainage in the eye, so that the additional liquid in the eye can flow, so that the optic nerves are not being damaged.
Okay. And that didn't go to plan.
That did. Those 2 eye surgeries, the initial 2 eye surgeries, really saved whatever remaining eyesight I had.
I'm surprised that the doctor didn't tell you when you came out of surgery the true extent. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know why he didn't tell me. I guess also it's very hard to tell someone they're going to be permanently blind. I remember that day, where he told me that I was going to be totally blind as well. It's like, you have about 10 years of eyesight before you go totally blind. And that drove me kind of insane, because it's like telling you that you don't really have a future. It felt like that.
And you got all that information on the same day?
On the same day that you're totally blind, we're going to refer you to the Singapore Association for the Visually Handicapped. You're going to get a cane. And you have about 10 years of your eyesight left.
Okay.
And that was 19.
And what was your feelings towards this doctor who gave you the drops? And how have you
I was
come to
angry.
reconcile?
I was angry. I wanted to sue him, but then I can't.
You can't?
I tried. There's a few issues right here, right? I realized, to go into a legal battle with the government, you need a few things. Number one is, in Singapore, you need a lawyer, firstly. Secondly, you need someone who's willing to go into court, get representation and battle the legal system. In Singapore, the military court and the high court are at the same level. So the High Court does not overrule the military court. And in the military, there's a ruling. So, Government Proceeding Act, Section 14. One wrongdoing by one national serviceman to the other, the victim cannot hold the wrongdoer nor the organization any liability. And because of this, there are people in the army who die from training, from waterboarding, whatever, training as a commandos, or they have accidents that happen. The government are not liable to be sued. They this is how they get away with it. I realized this, years after I lost my sight. When I was trying to pursue compensation, there's none of it. You can't.
And have you had a conversation with this doctor since?
No.
Did you say I want to be in a room with him just to give him a smack or something? But I'm sure you had those feelings.
I used to. Move on. You have to move on. It makes me appreciate what I have today. All the stuff I've gone through at 19 years old, 18 years old, until today. It's quite big. It's been a spectacular 20 years.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. And
can you tell me, 18, you said that you're only just coming to terms with your sexuality, and then this happens, whereas you said that the coming to terms with your blindness eclipsed the sexuality element. Would you say that it almost made being gay just...
It was very sad because I had a boyfriend back then.
At the time?
At the time.
Yeah.
And I broke up with him.
Right.
And because I was going blind, and I didn't tell him it was because I was going blind. I just felt so unworthy of love. I couldn't imagine the possibility of anyone loving me and having to take care of me. The urge to be hyper independent, is so strong, and that I was so ruthless. I was like, no, I don't love you anymore. I can't be with you. And he cried, I remember, and I didn't tell him why. It was hard.
Have you spoken to him since then?
A few years later, yeah. We're friendly, but I don't think I think until today, I don't think he made the connection that it's because of that.
And would you say that looking back on that, you would have done things differently?
I don't think so. I mean, I believe at any one point of time, we all do the best we can with the amount of information we are given. And at the point of time, at 19 years old, where I had no money, had no idea where I was heading in my life, I thought I made the best of what I could.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I suppose you were then rehabilitating and adjusting to life as a blind person. So I suppose that in itself
was a lot of, so there was a lot of shame with that, right? Because, people talk about gay shame, but there's also like disability shame, actually. How could I let this happen to me? Why didn't I just... A lot of people gave a lot of advice, like, why didn't you just stop using eye drops? Why didn't you fight the military system to say, hey, you shouldn't... you can't go to the army, you can't go to work. I'm like, there's a lot of adjustments. I think I went into deep depression for a while, and I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to end my life, but I didn't, because I told myself I have two choices, right? I could either end it now or not. I don't want to die. I realized at the end of the day, I'm still hopeful. No matter how depressed I am, this is a natural feeling I'm feeling. It's not about taking antidepressants and, this is not mental health. This is a trauma, right? And I want to live. I want to live a life. I don't want to die from this. So there was so much conflict in me, but I make a decision that I'm going to live my life the best way I can. In the US, I was speaking to the lawyer, and he's like, in the US, you have gotten $20 million and, you'll be settled for life. But not in Singapore. That's not going to happen. So I was like, okay, $20 million. Fuck them. I'm going to make $20 million myself. No, nowhere close. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna prove to everyone that I'm smart. I'm gonna prove to everyone I can do this. So how can I make the most money and ensure my own survival. That was the switch that happened. Something in me was like, I need to do this. I need to do it. I need to prove it to them. And that is where my life started turning positive.
So your 20s, not only were you navigating career, but you're also adjusting to your blindness and accepting that. And what would you say was a really pivotal time for you that you reconciled what had happened?
I think when people are kind to me. So when I first lost my sight and didn't have like anything, I spoke to some of my friends, and I remember one friend, Alvin, he was like, he heard my story. The next day he came back and he said, hey, I'm gonna help you with your medication. I was like, what? No, you don't. Like, that was before I got my scholarship. And I was like, wow, why is he being so kind? He's like, oh my God, I got a bursaries and there's $2,000 I can spare. I spoke to my parents, they're happy with that. Right? They're so kind to me, right? And then company has been kind by, giving me a scholarship. I have some university professors I have one professor that read out every single chapter that I needed to know into a tape, recorded it, and sent to me for me to listen. For one whole semester, I was so touched by her, right? And then when you see the kindness in other people treating you so well, it's just like maybe my life is worth living. But that was like, it was just random, this acts of kindness that really turned on the switch that, you know what, it's okay to be blind. Because it's not the end and things will always work out.
From your own experience and talking to other people that might have had a huge shift in their health or their physical or whatever, and as you said, becoming blind, in your words, is a lot more difficult than being born blind, which I think everyone can imagine is the truth because you lose something, so there's a grief in that. How would you advise, or how would you say to anyone who has lost something like that, how do you sort of let go of the anger?
It's a process. It's processing, right? You don't expect your trauma to be resolved within a day. Sometimes you can never change the past. And the what if this didn't happen, what if that happened, will never help you, right? So being a realist, but also being positive about your future, it's really important. I think at the end of the day, if I need to be super 100% honest with myself, I'm still an optimist.
Good.
I don't know what sort of life, I can't remember what sort of life I imagined for myself when I was a kid. Growing up, what sort of adult I wanted to be, but going blind wasn't one of that. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't it wasn't a goal, I would say. But things happen in life, and things will always happen in life that is unexpected. Sometimes you may think it's a bad thing, but you never really know if it's a bad thing because it brought me, a full scholarship. It brought me opportunities that other people don't. I would otherwise never have gotten. It showed me kindness from other people, and it showed me that I'm actually really good at what I do.
Yeah.
So being optimistic, about the future, no matter how bad things may seem, I think is the key.
You're a comedian.
Well, I do comedy. I don't call myself a comedian.
Well, you do comedy. But can I ask you,
Yeah,
because I want to keep it
sure,
light at this point, what funny day-to-day things happen to you as a blind person in terms of interactions with the world? People say to you, just when you talk to other blind people or share with other people with visual impairments stories, what common things come up that are quite funny?
There's so many silly things people say, right? People are generally really curious creatures, right? You don't know any blind people, you wanna you want to find out more. So sometimes you say things that's really strange. Have you tried glasses? That's a really common thing people ask. Because they want to help. The intention is, I want to help you. I don't know if you have heard of this invention called glasses.
Yeah.
But it's never coming from a bad place. It's just coming from maybe ignorance or like just not thinking about, whether, maybe they think that Singapore is a third world country, we don't have glasses. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. People will sometimes tell you, go over there, and they point to that direction.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. I have a little bit of eyesight, I can see where you're pointing, but another blind person wouldn't have been able to, right? So, don't point. There are...
What about talking to other gay people? What do you get if on your comedy show, you referenced using Grindr? I don't know if you use it or not, but when you tell other gay guys in a sort of either sexual, romantic, friendship level, what things do they say to you? I'm sure people don't know.
I mean, some people, they don't want to accept it. It's like, I've seen you not use your cane and you're not blind. They will try to like prove to you that you're not blind, which is very strange. Like, I know,
Yeah.
And then sometimes, I mean, I think like it's sometimes difficult because when I remember I went on a few dates, and I decided to just take up my cane and just see what happens. There's one person who just left and ghosted me, which happens, right? Then there are people who are like, oh, you know what? If you didn't, a few, we became friends. Nothing came out of the date. If you didn't tell me you were blind, you have been more attractive.
If you didn't
tell me that you were blind, because I have I can get away with not using my cane and pretending I could see everything. I can. It's considered like an invisible disability, right? But truth is, once it's dark, I really need my cane.
Yeah.
So kind of that was quite hard to accept. Sometimes I'm still coming into terms with the intersectionality between being gay and being disabled, because sometimes people don't get it, right? And they say something that is quite ableist, that with that sentence of, if you didn't tell me you were blind, I would have found you more attractive, underlines the fact that he thinks that people who are blind are not attractive.
He said this in real life to you?
Yeah.
I just can't believe that people actually say these things. When I hear these stories, I'm just
blown
away.
I don't think it was coming from a place of malice. I think he thinks he's giving me advice, but it was more of the fact that he has internalized his ableism, that he didn't realize that what he was saying was quite hurtful. Yeah. So I wasn't angry. I was just like, okay. No, how do I show up in front of other gay people, in front of my friends? And it's people are afraid to talk about it, unless they are my close friends who knows about it and we can joke about my blindness. There will always be a barrier.
Do you avoid certain gay spaces? Would you not go to, say, a gay music festival or a drag show or something? Because
I do that a lot, actually.
You do a lot.
I go to shows and I have my cane and people are like, oh, you're so brave. I'm like, you're so inspiring. I'm like, I just exist.
Yeah.
I'm just having I'm as strong as you are.
Yeah.
I'm not inspiring anyone. But people, so I think it's like being visible with your disability sometimes makes people feel like, oh yeah, he's so brave. Because in a way they think that they have this misconception that, if you are disabled, you're going to be at home a lot. You don't want to go out. You don't enjoy your life. There's a lot of ableist mentality there.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like, you know what? I do comedy because I want to share my experience as a blind person, as a gay person, as an Asian person, as an immigrant. There's so many tick boxes, right? I can share my experience because it's funny, and I want it. You might not understand. You might not. You don't need to be blind, or gay or be Asian to understand, to relate to this day-to-day experience, because it's observational humor from my perspective. It's quite interesting. So, and I find that using humor brings down the barriers. People feel like, oh, he can take a joke. It's fine. I don't have to be so wary about he's too sensitive to talk about this, or I'm so curious about that. I feel like if I use comedy and educate people that way, at least that's for now, that's good.
Would you say generally people with a disability want to be just treated exactly the same, or do they enjoy some sort of overly kind and overly, how the public you just described then, people might come up to you and say, oh, amazing for coming out. Would you actually just prefer, hey, I'm just here, treat me like
I mean,
else?
this is a difficult question to answer, right? Because some days I want to sit down and please give me my priority seat. Some days it's one stop away, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. So it really depends.
Free coffee, I'll take it.
Yeah. I sometimes, do I want to milk it? Yeah, I'll milk the shit out of it. But sometimes I'm like, no, there's no need to. So I can't tell you, and everyone's different, right? So it really depends on situation. If, let's say, be treated the same, doesn't mean equity and equality is not the same thing, right? And accessibility, we need to take that into consideration. So someone who needs to use public bathroom that is wheelchair accessible, you can tell them, I just want to treat you the same, so I'm just give you a normal store. That doesn't work, right? So you have to look at the situation, but be very critical. Am I treating you the same, and therefore disadvantaging you, or I'm making you inconvenienced by giving you exactly the same thing as someone else who needs who's able-bodied? You don't know that, right? Until you have to look at the situation.
Yeah.
You can't treat everyone exactly the same if they need the help.
There's so much emphasis on the physical.
Oh yeah.
In gay world. Mm-hmm. You made a joke yourself when I saw your stand-up that you're not fussy was your joke. And that's probably in relation to the fact that you don't give a shit what they look like. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
Okay, so tell me more about physical attraction and I guess how has being blind affected your relationships and how you see other men?
Okay, maybe this might change in a few years when I'm totally blind. Maybe, I don't know. But right now, I feel like, you know what? Ultimately, I'm attracted to people who are kind, who are good looking, and good looking is subjective. Kind isn't. Kindness isn't subjective. So kindness is objective. And this is quite funny. There was once I was in Manchester Pride with my cane with my friends, and we were in a club. I don't remember which bar. This guy started talking to me, and he started asking me, "Do you want to touch my face?" Because he thinks that I can't see anything at all, and I could tell he was very good looking. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, go on.
Don't mind if I do. I started molesting his face. And my friends were laughing so loudly at the back because they know I could see his face. I could make out like how he was good looking. So, the question here is like, does look still matter to someone who is blind? I guess it really depends on the blind person whether they are vain or not. Right? I could be like, oh, totally blind, but I want someone who is extremely hench. That could be my preference. Or I could be not blind and also say I prefer someone who is a twink or a chap. Right? I'm a chaser. I guess is whether the physical looks still matter or not. It's not really so much about the eyesight. It's more about that person itself, what sort of person he is.
So the guy that asked you to feel his face, was he doing it because he wanted you to validate him and because he thought he was gorgeous? Or I
think he just wanted to, I don't know what he wanted. He was drunk, I guess. He was like, feel my face. I'm like, okay.
Did you kiss him?
No.
Oh, you should just. That sounds like he was hitting on you to me.
Maybe I'm also very bad at picking up social cues. Like in clubs, because of central vision, no peripheral vision. My friend's like, that guy's hitting on you. I have no idea.
Yeah,
because
right.
I don't see any signals, right?
Yeah.
And also now that I'm much older, less people hitting on me. So
Right. Okay.
anyone listening to this, want to hit on me, just hit on me, please. And let me know you're hitting on me because I can't tell.
But you know that they say, but when you lose a sense, you gain another, or one enhances the other. Would you say that you're now more, in terms of a sexual sense and a physical sense, far more interested in touch and smell than you were before? Do you feel like your senses have been heightened elsewhere?
No.
No.
I it's such a romantic concept, right? Or if you lose your eyesight, one of the senses become really enhanced. But because I still have my central vision, which is still usable, my hearing didn't become like super sensitive.
Yeah.
Or touch. So the only thing that really enhanced was my memory.
Okay.
I'm really good at remembering stuff. Slight decks, really.
Yeah.
But that's because I use it every day, right? I have to rely on more on my memory. So if I'm totally blind and I need to rely on my hearing more, probably it would be really interesting to find out, what is the difference between someone who's totally blind. How do they find sex? That's something interesting. And versus someone who is a wheelchair user, how do they do that? I think they'll be quite.
Have you had a conversation with a gay person that was born blind?
Gay person who's born blind? No, actually.
Because I wonder, their sexuality. Our sexuality grew from seeing naked men when we were younger. I suppose that's how it works, or men that we were attracted to physically. But if you can't see them, then how do you distinguish between man and woman, I guess, in a physical sense? That would be something interesting to ask them.
Definitely. I'm curious.
Yeah. But I guess it's all about, you must have had conversations with people that were born blind and they tell you their experience of the world is radically different to yours because they just have no comprehension of how things, the color, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and also there is a frustration as well for people who are, disabled from a very early age, because the world treats them as if they are children, and they don't talk about their sexuality, the needs, the sexual desires of people with disabilities. I think basically you become people. It's another layer of stigma. You're barely surviving on. You're barely surviving. Why are you talking about sexual needs? And a lot of their sexual needs are not being met. That's the perception, right? I think that would be a topic, really interesting topic to explore.
Yeah. Would you say that you're treated differently than other people in gay world?
I think so, but I can never be sure whether it's because of my disability, or is it my race? I cannot tell. Or is it who I am as a person? Right? Sometimes people don't think they're treating you differently, but my friends, even when I go out clubbing with my friends can notice that. It's like, oh yeah, people are like they're quite rude to you. So yeah, I think it happens.
My hope is that if you do experience that, it's because able-bodied people, is that the word for them? I suppose my hope is that able-bodied people are potentially just a bit awkward and don't really know and don't have the vocabulary or even the empathy level to really know what to say or do.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And the thing is that unfortunately, you can't, it's not really normalized to see someone with a cane going out clubbing.
Yeah.
Or it's not very normalized because sometimes, we have more accessibility needs, right? So going to roast, the idea of really dark places with lights and flashing lights, not being able to see very clearly. I am super dependent on my friends to bring me around around the dance floor. So, and it doesn't help that they are often drunk.
Yeah. Do you drink?
Mm-hmm.
How's that when you get wasted?
Doesn't help with my sight. I don't really want to get wasted anymore. I'm at this age where I don't really want to drink that much.
Me too. I went to roast for the first time recently.
Yeah.
And do you take a cane into roast?
No.
I was gonna say.
They firstly, like, it's really awkward to bring a cane, and you can't really use it anyway. You hit, and the moment you swing it, you hit everyone.
Yeah,
so it's easier just to hold on to your friends.
Yeah.
And then say, take me to the toilet, please.
Yeah, for sure.
And then sometimes I'm dancing, I have no idea that they already moved on.
Yeah.
Because one half naked body looks at the same as the next half naked body.
Yeah.
Unless they're really, really tall. So I'm like, okay, where are my friends now? No idea what's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really, I only like do it a few times a year. I don't really club that much.
Is there anything since losing your sight that you don't care about anymore?
To a certain extent, I also don't really care so much about how my friends look, because I feel like I want positive people in my life. I want friends who are actually nice and kind. Doing so, yeah, I think it's maturity. I'm becoming less shallow.
Yeah. And
It helps.
You're doing comedy now, right?
Yeah, well, trying to do.
Well, you're on the circuit. So I just want to touch on that and say that, is this something that you are pursuing as just a hobby, something for fun? Is it a way to express yourself? What's comedy for you?
It's a lot of things. I'm doing it purely because it is fun for me. There's just standing on stage and performing, and like you get into a flow of things.
Yeah.
And like I know exactly what I'm gonna say, how I'm gonna say it, where I'm gonna look, where's the joke's gonna land, where's the punchline, how I can entertain people. I think I do it because it's fun for me at this point of time. It's just it was a creative goal last year. I wanted to do something creative each week, and I exceeded that goal by a lot last year. And then also as a coping mechanism, because as I'm moving on from a cane to a guide dog in a couple of, I don't know how long, a year or so. So, I think that talking about my blindness, talking about my cane, changing to a guide dog, that it's sort of like me processing what's happening to me, because my humor it's basically just observations of my own life. So it's just me having fun while processing my life.
I think that when comedians, I suppose, take the piss out of their own disadvantages, you're giving the audience permission to laugh at you in a way that they wouldn't do in public.
Laugh with me.
Yeah, laugh with you. But that's the important thing, is that they're laughing. You're allowing them to laugh with you. You're inviting them in to laugh at potential struggles that you go through day to day. And in doing that, that helps you, does it?
Yes. So there are a lot of people who, if you did a comedy course, so you realize that most people who do stand-up comedy, weirdos. Strange bunch, right? But the thing is that a lot of people, they have trauma and they do comedy and they don't make it funny. It's like, where is the joke in it, right?
Yeah.
If you just tell me, my uncle touched me when I was a kid, and then you just throw it out there without making it funny.
Yeah.
That is just exposing your trauma without being a comic.
Yeah.
Right. So I think allowing, it's only comedy if people laugh. And if it's just me standing up in front of people telling them I lost my eyesight and I'm miserable, that is not funny. Yeah. And there's nothing to laugh at. People feel uncomfortable. It's cringy. So why are you doing that?
And would you like a relationship?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about that. Yes, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not looking for it. But if I find it, great. But while I figure out whether that's important to me or not, I'll just have fun by myself.
We're in the same boat.
Oh yeah.
Well, you said earlier, which was quite hard to hear, that you said the first thing that you thought when you were told that you won't see again is who will love me now. But what are we now? 20? How many
20 years later.
So 20 years later, would you say that that's not the case anymore? You don't think that?
I now know I will love me now. I think that sentence came from lack of love, self-love, and a preconceived ideas of what blindness means, what disability means, what being, then that was a reflection of what I needed in my life back then. I needed to be loved by others because I didn't feel loved. And now I know I'm loved by my friends. So I think, and most importantly, every day I'm trying to love myself a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, you seem like an incredibly optimistic person.
Were you worried that I was like, oh, my life is shit, everything's bad and dark?
No, not at all. I think from going to a comedy gig, I realised that wasn't going to be the case. But I think that's just what struck me, is that you've just had quite the story. You've had to go through things a lot of people will never have to go through, and face a lot of adversity, and you seem to really have a great outlook on life now, and you're full of enthusiasm and passion and happiness, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you agree with those things?
Yes, of course. You have to be happy, right? I think, I'm not talking about being positive or toxically positive. I think everything you do should bring you some joy, or at least enable you to do something that makes you happy, right? Your job, or your friends. If you're not happy with people because they actually bring you down, then don't hang out with them. If let's say I feel like, oh, the gay community doesn't accept blind people or whatever, just don't hang out with that community. Find another community to hang out with, right? It's your experience can be changed as long as you seek new experiences. Maintain what you want. Surround yourself with people who appreciate you and enjoy your humor.
Well, I think we should leave it there. But Jeffrey, thank you for taking my request on Instagram to come and chat with me.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming on. And everybody go and see Jeffrey Soh.
Oh, thank you. Follow me.
Yeah.